Hello again, everybody. I'm Jeremiah Reiner, and thank you for listening in to a brand new episode of Deeply Rooted.
Deeply rooted in God's word. Deeply rooted in God's word.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Deeply Rooted. Thank you for joining us wherever you're at, however you may be listening. We appreciate all the support out there. We thank you for all the prayers that you've been pouring out to us. Difficult time, unique circumstances, obviously, but we're really excited about the content today. We do want to go ahead and dive in and give you a little bit of promotional. Don't forget, you can reach us at our email. That's drigw18@gmail.com. Again, that's drigw18@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, so if you haven't done that so far, make sure you go over and follow us on that for any daily updates and inspirational things we put on there for you. And make sure you go over and hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts and on our YouTube channel, so that way you'll be updated every time we drop a brand new episode. And today's is going to be a really good one, so now would be a great time to go ahead and subscribe. And if you want a little bit more info, you can also go over to our new website. That's jeremiahreiner.com. You'll find all of our archive messages on there, all of our blog posts that we have, so you can read up on that. And you can see our ministry schedule as well. So if you're in the area, some of these places we're going to be at preaching and teaching. Love to be with you, love to fellowship, love to get to talk to you and share testimonies about the Lord and see what's going on. So with that being said, all things deeply rooted out of the way, we're really excited today. We've got a tremendous group of people. I consider these guys good friends. This is Phillips and Banks, the music group. We have Jacob and Carmen Phillips with their lovely daughter Olivia. She's not here with us right now, but she's there in spirit. And we've also got Caleb and Autumn Banks. So guys, thank you guys so much for being on the podcast.
Hey buddy, thank you for having us. We're excited to be here.
I'm going to jump in and kind of get everybody up to date with you guys. As far as I know, is everybody in the group from the Tri-Cities area?
Yeah, pretty much. I was born in Bristol, Virginia, and then we moved to Blountville when I was in elementary school, and then graduated from Sullivan Central High School. And Carmen is from Kingsport. And
we live in Bristol now.
Yeah, so we're in Bristol now.
Caleb, what about you and Autumn?
I was actually born right here at Hudson Valley Hospital in Kingsport, Tennessee, and then Autumn grew up in the Gate City area, so not too far away from here. And then, of course, we both live here in Kingsport now, so I love home.
I knew there's a reason I liked you, Caleb. I didn't know that your wife was from Gate City, so you're in great company. That bumps Autumn up to my new favorite member of the group now, I think. So, as far as like you guys residing where you're at now, I know singing is obviously what you guys are known for. Is that something that has always been a part of your life that you can kind of recall being involved in since you were young?
Yeah, my singing's been a family thing, not something that we traveled and sang, but music's always been a huge part of my family's world. My mom's side of the family they all sung, and everybody sung harmony. You just didn't know you didn't do that. You just jumped in wherever, and so it's always been a huge part of my life growing up. And just because I've been around it with all the other people in my family. So, but it's mostly just, we sang in church, we sang at home, we did, that's all.
Carmen grew up in a family that everybody sings, and then my family, my dad, he probably has the loudest voice of any person on the earth, but he doesn't necessarily sing. But my mom sings, and I learned to play guitar when I was probably 14 or 15, and sang my first song in church when I was like, 3 or 4 years old. So it's always been a huge part of my life, and something that I feel like I've always kind of went to in good times, bad times. I just love music. I love to sing. I think it, it brings joy, but it can also, it can describe every emotion that in the human experience, whether it's
Right.
happiness or sadness, joy or whatever. So yeah, music has always been a huge part of my life. Yeah, for sure.
What about the Banks family? Caleb, you and Autumn, how about you guys? I know, Caleb, you came from really the Banks family, which is a fairly well-known group, in our area. But what about you and Autumn individually, though?
We, I'll let Autumn answer for herself. Singing's always been a part of my life, music, and it's just something I've always loved. That's how, like Jacob was saying, even during bad times, it don't matter who you were getting along with or which cousin you just rolled out in the yard and, you all were fighting 2 seconds, but we always ran back to music and it always brought us back together. And it's just something that was instilled in us. My mamaw, I've heard stories that she's kind of the one that started all of us playing guitar, and she actually made her very first guitar because they were poor. They were from Kentucky. And so
I didn't know that. That's cool.
But she made her own guitar, and she used to sit and watch or sit and listen to the radio. They didn't have TV at the time, and she was a big Chet Atkins fan, man. I'm telling you. But she taught herself to play, and then passed it on down, I guess, to my dad and my uncles, and that was something he passed to me. So yeah, music's been a big part of our lives.
Autumn, how about you?
Well, she was, her family, now I will say, like, her dad is, I don't guess he necessarily sings, but man, he loves music, and it doesn't matter. It's crazy. He listens to everything, but one of his favorite things in the world is bluegrass. Mm-hmm. And so Autumn's kind of picked up that love for music through him. She's, all different styles and whatever. And it kind of comes out in her writing, and it's funny, she'll start and write on a song like something slow and something with a lot of emotion to it, and just such a beautiful message of praising the Lord. And then on the other hand, she'll write a song that completely says, you know what, devil, we're not going to take this because we're children of God. And I'm like, I'm not exactly sure what happened right there, but I'm really glad that it did.
Right.
But yes, music is definitely, it's just it's kind of, even at the theater, I've heard stories that was kind of what brought her through a lot of her times and kind of brought her out of her shell. And so we're, even now, here we are getting into this, this ministry 2.5 years into it, almost 3, and we're starting to learn that she has gifts we didn't even know she had.
She didn't even have, she wasn't a part of choir at Gate City. She always was in the band, and it shocked me so much when she would come to the theater and she'd start singing, and I'd be like, wait, you've just never used this anywhere? I don't understand what's happening. So, it's even a late thing in her life that she's really been stepping out in, but the Lord has really gifted her.
Now, for a lot of people listening to the episode right now, we have basically to summarize this for you. We have 2 married couples. So we've got Jake and Carmen, and we've got Autumn and Caleb. And I want to focus on that for just a second. And I'll start with Jacob and Carmen. You guys, you mentioned this in your bio on your website there, and I had known this through your testimonies and stuff before, but you guys met, I believe, at Carson Newman College. Is that right?
Well, no, actually, we met before that.
We met in high school.
So you were pursuing her for a long time.
Yeah.
But we met in high school. I was involved with musical theater a lot, and Jacob was not. He was in choir, but he was more of a sports kind of person. Well, then he kind of let sports go to the side, I guess, in his...
I'll sit in the bench too much, bottom line.
And I said, we needed somebody. Our lead guy in a musical dropped out like a month before we were supposed to open the show. And so he is 2 years younger, 2.5 years younger than I am. And so I was a senior, and I went to this sophomore baby-faced little boy and asked him if he would jump in for one small little part in the show. And then that guy dropped out, the main lead guy dropped out. And so I was like, instead of doing that one song, would you just step into this role and just take it over? So he jumped in. Anyway, so we met through a play. Most play flings don't last, but for some reason, he stuck around.
Our first date was on April Fool's Day, and my mom was convinced that she was just playing this evil trick on me and wasn't really gonna follow through with anything. So I'm glad she did, and I'm glad that 16 years later we're still together, and God has blessed our marriage, and He's blessed our family, and we're grateful to have one another and to be a part of a ministry that we feel like the Lord's really called us to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we did go to Carson Newton.
Yeah, we did.
And we kind of developed a love for worship and leading worship. We were part of a ministry there, and learned a whole lot while we were there. Not just schoolwork, but actually through the ministry that we were part of and things. And so then by the time we graduated, we didn't really want to do what we were getting our education for.
Well, we both got degrees in music education, and I thought I wanted to be a music teacher. And then I thought I wanted to be a music teacher until I did my student teaching, and then I found out I didn't want to be a teacher. And so,
amen to that.
Yeah. And so, there were times where I was like, Lord, I'm here 4 years in college and learned all this stuff and made all the grades and got my diploma, and now I'm not even going to use the degree. But Carmen and I, the Lord really, he taught me so much through college about life in general and about ministry and about how to lead worship. And he just taught me so much through that time in college, and I know it wasn't wasted. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't.
And we use what we learn now.
Sure. Yeah.
And even through what we've done in the past, we use it, just not in the way we thought we did. So.
Now, when did you guys get married?
2009.
We just had a wedding anniversary this past Saturday.
All right, congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to flip over a little bit just past that for you guys. I know that all of you have an involvement with what's known as Lamplight Theater. And I'm going to ask you, Jacob and Carmen, real fast, and then we'll get to Autumn and Caleb in just a second. Can y'all talk a little bit about what that meant to you all to be a part of that as a young couple, and B, as just kind of getting into your calling in life from what I think we can tell of you people?
Well, I met Billy Wayne, who is the owner and operator of Lamplight, when I was about a sophomore in high school. A lot of things happened when I was a sophomore in high school. I met Carmen, I met Billy Wayne. My grandmother passed away. It was just a lot happened that year. And it was the Lord really, that was anyway, it was just a big year in my life spiritually. And but I remember I met him through a guy that I was actually in choir with at school, and he was telling me about this guy named Billy Wayne that had this theater out in the middle of Fall Branch, and that they needed more guys to be in this show. And I said, well, okay, I may go and do something like that. And I remember going and did that first show with him, and then I did the summer internship after I graduated high school with him, and then I went off to college for 4 years, and then after graduated college, I came back, and I remember the day after I graduated college, I got a full-time position with him as his road manager. At the time, he was still singing and traveling as a traveling evangelist and doing the theater at the same time, and he still does that to some degree, but it's mostly the theater now. and not so much traveling. As when I first came on, it was kind of the opposite. He traveled a lot more than he was at the theater. So I was kind of his road manager for a while, took care of the music for him on the road as far as like leading in worship and stuff. And then Carmen came on full-time staff in, what was it, 2011 maybe, or something like that. And God just really used that ministry to teach us what true ministry was, And one thing that I will say about Billy's ministry is that it's not always real pretty. Billy really ministers to a lot of people that sometimes may fall through the cracks or get left out or whatever, and God really uses him to minister to people that are broken and hurting, and it's just real hands-on, and it's kind of messy sometimes, and it's a good thing. It's a tremendous ministry that we learned so much from, and it was an honor and privilege to serve on that team for 7 years full-time staff, and God did amazing things.
I think he grew my faith in that time. That I don't know. You definitely have to think about your motives and why you're in what you're in. And it definitely, my faith was tested many times, saying, "Are you here because it's secure, or that you feel really comfortable, or are you here because I asked you to be here? Are you following me? Or are you following what you want? Or what? Just the questions that the Lord asked through that time was a good thing, a faith, soul searching thing, for me. So it's treasured memories at that place,
There was preparation, I think, too, for what we're doing now,
And which, of course, we didn't know that at the time.
Right. But once Phillips and Banks kind of started and we started traveling and singing, I thought many times, I just thought, how many mistakes would we have made if we hadn't have had that preparation and teaching, and almost we sat under that ministry for a really long time, and it really helped us be where we are today.
It definitely helps us know how to minister to people now. And not that we know everything or anything, but it prepared us to know what to focus on and what not to focus on. That's for sure.
Well, you guys weren't the only ones being prepared there. I know Autumn and Caleb, you guys have a somewhat similar story, at least for sure. Your paths are crossing there at Lamplight. So talk to us a little bit about how you guys met, and then, kind of how Lamplight was also incorporated in your lives as well.
I never thought about it until Jacob and Carmen were saying that, they met during a production, and that's kind of how Autumn and I met. I just remember, it was one of the toughest times of my life where the Lord brought me to that theater, and I explained to Billy what was going on in my life, and he said, "Listen, here's a few things I want to ask you," and we went through a checklist of stuff. He said, "Are you doing this? Are you doing that?" I said, "No, I'm not doing any of those things." He said, "Well, good, you need to be on the stage." And so through that, like Jacob and Carmen were saying, I'd never seen people minister like that, especially in a not uncomfortable as far as the people you were around, but it's uncomfortable in a setting of, it's not people that are looking for help all the time. Or not people that they have some kind of knowledge of Christ or some kind of knowledge of what they need to do in their life. You're working with a crowd of people who have never heard of anything about the gospel. And so coming into that environment was awesome. It was something that I had been saved maybe a couple of years. And so I was just learning who the Lord was in my life, really, like Carmen was saying. I was learning to trust him and taking some of those steps. You were having to trust him financially when you took a week off to go and do a camp. You had to trust him, in all kinds of different aspects that I feel like Jacob was saying, that's where God brought those things out. and there was a time of training, of preparation for what he was calling us to. And Autumn the same, she came on as an intern, and that's the way Jacob always said that she came on as an intern and just never left. She eventually just transitioned into staff, but through that ministry as well, she, all of them had taught, and she'll testify to this herself, but she was not a very talkative person, which she's still not a very talkative person, but a lot of gifts that she didn't know she had, a lot of things that she didn't know about herself. God put people in her life to bring those things out of her, for her to be able to open up and realize, hey, this is the call that God's put on my life. And so, and that's, back to your other question. Yes, that is where we met. And we actually, we were supposed to get married. We were going to have a great church wedding, and it was really set up and all that stuff. And then we got together after a show one evening, and we were both, I remember it was just terrible. We were tired of, every night I'd say, well, good night. And she would go to Bristol because she lived with Jacob and Carmen.
Fun fact, she lived with me for 4 years.
So she would go to Bristol, and then I would hear, at the time I was living at my dad's, and so I thought, man, I hate this, I want her to come home with me. So we just got to talking one night, and we're like, what are we really waiting for? And I said, I don't know. She said, I know you're the one that God wants me to marry. And I said, I knew that when I asked you out on the first date, because, there's so many things that I questioned the Lord about before I ever asked her out. So lo and behold, we just decided, okay, 2 weeks from now, we're going to get married. And so we did. We were doing a 50 show at the theater. We did the 2 o'clock show. This was on a Saturday. And, we did the 2 o'clock show where I was on stage with my fake wife. Then her grandfather and our parents showed up. I mean, there couldn't have been 15, 20 people there. Jacob was my best man. So, yeah. So we got married, and then we cleared the room out. It was all, hey, happy, everybody hug. And then we went and got back in costume and did the 7 o'clock show. So that's our marriage story.
Well, that's a unique one, that's for sure. As far as Lamplight goes, I think, I was thinking about this when I was looking over some of the questions for the interview and stuff. I believe that's the first time I had ever seen or met any of you guys. I had went to an Easter production years ago, cool. And I do remember seeing you guys and singing, and I remember immediately thinking, wow, these guys are tremendously talented. And we went with some family and stuff, and was just really impressed with how professional everything was, how God-centered everything was. And I'm not saying this because you guys are in front of us right now, we're doing this interview, but you could tell quickly who stood out, and who had kind of that next level, I guess, kind of gear. And I remember thinking, I walked away from there and I thought, wow, those guys really should do something, like past this. I think they've got that kind of talent. And I'm saying that to set you up with this. Obviously, you guys transitioned out of Lamplight, and here you are today with the Phillips and Banks group. So really, a couple of questions, I guess, as far as that's concerned. Number one, who came up with the idea to kind of venture out and do that? And then I guess second, who came up with the name?
Jacob?
Well,
okay, so Autumn and Jacob both. I don't know why.
Carmen was opposed to this from the very beginning.
I ain't doing it. I was like, no, I didn't want to do it because we could do it. I wanted to know that we were doing it because that's what the Lord wanted.
Right.
She's so godly.
Shut up. I'm being serious. You got to edit all that out. No, I'm serious though. I just didn't want to do it because it was something that we thought we could do. I just wanted to be sure that it was what the Lord wanted. And we were so sure that the Lord wanted us to leave Lamplight at the time, to leave full-time staff. We were, we had gone away for a retreat just to seek the Lord and, receive confirmation from the Lord, I guess, that it was time to move on. But the Lord didn't give us any indication as to what was next, and so we had diligently sought him, I guess, to find out whether we should stay or not. And I didn't want to jump into something that we thought we could do, just because we could. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just wanted to be sure of our next step, that it was the Lord's direction. So I know we've sung a song at your church when, I don't know if you were there when we sang the song "Stuck in the Wilderness."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was where that song kind of came from, during that season where I was the one who was hesitant, and they were like, okay, I'm always the one who's hesitant, sorry, but they're like, let's do it. I was always like, nah, no. But during that season, we really just dug in deep. When you don't know which direction to go, and you don't want to screw anything up. You don't want to mess up with the Lord, and you want to wait on Him. You want to do it in His timing and so forth. And anyway, during that time, I was reading about the children of Israel, the Hebrew children, and they were out in the wilderness, and they got stuck in the wilderness. When God was ready to take them to the promised land, they got stuck out there again for another 40 years because they didn't trust the Lord that He was going to lead them, that they were going to take it. They saw those giants in the land when they sent the spies in, and they weren't sure, because they really weren't sure of the Lord, and His provision and His leading, and they got stuck in the wilderness. And I remember reading that and just crying, thinking, Lord, I just don't want to get stuck here or anywhere. I don't want to get stuck because I don't trust You, or that I don't listen close enough and obey You when You say go or don't go or whatever. And anyway, so then the Lord kind of did it for us, I guess.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that followed the Lamplight ministry that we had there, I think a lot of folks may think that we quit so that we could travel and sing, or that we quit with the mindset that we're going to go and start a Southern gospel group and travel and sing or whatever.
Sure.
But that just was not it. We quit. We were just obeying the Lord, or trying to, and so when that happened, we had a friend of ours who was like another grandmother to our daughter Olivia, and watched her all the time when we were at the theater. Her name was Janice Owens, and she got diagnosed with ALS and passed away right around the same time that we were stepping away from full-time staff at the theater. And so we went to her funeral, and we sang at her funeral. It was me and Carmen and Autumn. We sang a trio song, and a pastor approached me afterwards and said, "Hey, I heard that you're not at the theater anymore." And I was like, "No." And he said, "So I guess you got a lot more time on your hands." I said, "Yeah, we do." And he said, "Well, would you ever consider coming and singing at the church?" And I said, "Well, sure, we would, and honestly, Jeremiah, I don't know what else to tell you except that after we stepped out in obedience and went there, we didn't have a sound system, we had nothing, and we just went out of obedience. We sang there, and then God just began to open up doors, and here we are sitting here with you on the Zoom meeting call. I don't know how it all happened in between that time, but God provided every step of the way, and He's provided everything that we've needed. Somebody bought our sound system. Somebody paid for a trailer for us to travel with. And we didn't ask for any of those things. God gave them to us, And so that all those things are always good confirmation that you're walking, in the will of the Lord, and doing what you need to be doing. So that's kind of all how it happened. And yeah. So
When did you guys?
I remember
Go ahead, Caleb. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Caleb.
Well, I just remember the night we didn't even have a group name. We weren't even Phillips and Banks.
oh yeah, I forgot that. Tell him about that. Go ahead.
We were singing at a service one night, and everything happened like all of us had this big moment because we were singing at this church, wonderful service, right here in Kingsport, and then all of a sudden this pastor toward the end of the service says, I don't know about you all, but we've been looking to take on a new missionary. And we're just, all of us looking at each other like, we don't even have a group name. And then it was just, I don't know, it's like it just hit that night. The Lord's like, we're like, okay, I guess we're supposed to be singing gospel music. So that was the same night we had somebody stepped up to buy the sound system. And then it was crazy how things just fell right in line after that. So, and you had asked about the group name. That was a fun process. we
tried to be really, really creative, but it never really worked.
We were bad at that.
Yeah, so we just thought, well, maybe we'll just use our last names.
I remember I wrote our names on a folder of like lyrics that with songs we were singing. I just written it out there just to put it in there. I don't know. And we were just coming up with terrible names. They were just awful.
Like stupid stuff.
Yeah,
like,
really dumb names.
Like one of them was like Sweet Afton or something dumb like that. And I don't know.
Well, anyway, and then we looked at that notebook and we were like, I don't remember which one of us said, why don't we just use our names? It's right there. Let's just use that. And we're like,
and plus, people get excited when we come to their church because they think they're getting Phillips, Craig, and Dean or something.
Yeah.
So.
Now, what about the genre that you eventually ended up going on? Because I know you guys have sang probably everything coming and going, like a lot of people that are heavily involved in music and stuff. But what was it, I guess, kind of geared you towards, all right, we're probably going to stay in this lane, I guess, as far as what we're going to sing?
I think it's what it really comes down to is, it's all of our root. It's all how we grew up. We all grew up around hymns and Southern gospel music. Carmen's probably on the other end of the spectrum as far as like she probably experienced more contemporary music than any of the other three of us did growing up. She actually introduced me to a lot of contemporary worship music after we had started dating. But
she should have seen him trying to play guitar and play a worship song after just like hymns in church. I was like, what are you doing? Stop changing it there. He was like, I don't know how to do it.
All I knew how to play was
on the beat.
All I knew how to play was like I'll Fly Away. I didn't know how to play any of this other stuff. But anyway, so I think it's that. And then, I also think that, part of being a minister is trying to meet people where they are and then take them a little bit further. You know what I'm saying? So, there's just, in this area that we live in, there's a lot of places that, maybe they don't like contemporary music or whatever the case may be. And we have found that some of the most beautiful lyrics and some of the most beautiful music is Southern gospel music. And we love Southern gospel music. And this area loves it too. And so it is a good fit, and it's a good way to I always think that music is a vehicle in which you can get the gospel out there. So if I can come in and I can sing some songs that, will allow people to listen to what I have to say. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Because it's not just about the music for me. It's about, the ministry behind the music. So if I can come in and I sing some songs and people are on the same page with me, instead of maybe coming in and doing a song and everybody's kind of turned off, by that song or whatever, I can come in and do a song that everybody kind of enjoys and then take that a step further and saying, this is what God's done in my life and this is what God wants to do in your life. And it's just kind of a vehicle. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I think we're all I think I can speak for all of us and say that we're drawn to this, I guess what you call progressive Southern gospel. We played a lot of worship music. We played a lot of contemporary. We've done, through the theater, done so many different types of music, but something about this music draws us back. And I think a lot of it is the lyrics. But we try to be, honestly, just try to be true to who we are, and somewhat, we have a new project we just released, and I feel like it's a little bit eclectic.
Mm-hmm.
There's some strictly like fit in the vein Southern gospel, and then there's some stuff where you're like, oh, that was a curveball. Where'd that come from? But I can honestly say when we listen back to it, it's like, this is us.
Well, that's what somebody said the other day. They listened to the project and they were like, this is pretty Southern gospel-y, and I was like, well, it's just us.
It's
just us.
So,
Caleb, I'm going to ask you this one. How do you guys go about coming up with your music? Because I know you guys, and I've heard you sing and minister quite a bit. Most of what you guys do when you travel is done off of tracks. So how do you guys come up with this music that goes with the songs that you're writing?
Oh, well, to be honest with you, Jeremiah, especially on this album, because we got to really take time and just create what we were hearing and what we were feeling. And we had we had a few different writers on this. A very good friend of ours, Joseph Habedank.
Yeah.
Just a lot of people who have meant something in our lives, and it was, I'm not saying, I don't know how else to put this, but it was almost like when we listened to some of the songs that they said, I've written some songs, would you like to hear them? We were like, yeah, sure. So when we were listening through these things, it was something that, I don't know, it was actually really crazy how it worked out. And so, anyways, they would kind of give us a demo and an idea of what was happening with the music. And then, but God lined us up with some of what I think to be some of the best musicians I've ever heard play. And they would just take time and they would listen to, here's what we're feeling here. Here's what we'd like to have here. And this is what, it was like they were creating the moments that we wanted to have. Even though it is through a track, they were still putting the heart into it of what we wanted people to feel and experience when we got to sing it.
Sure.
And so that part was such a cool process. And, on this album, two of the songs, actually Autumn wrote, and that's what I was talking about. One is all about praising the Lord, and all of it is, but it's a little more focused on what he's done for us. And then, like the other song, like Carmen was saying, you get a curveball. It's more of a, we're still serving the same God, and we're going to walk right on through, So, but it was, so that's kind of how it came to be. We, when you're writing, you get, God kind of gives you gives you pieces of it, I guess you could say. But this time he really orchestrated people to just hear what we wanted, hear what we wanted to share with others. And you just give them a little bit of time to create that. And it just came together, man. I mean, it was just awesome.
Now, who does most of the writing here?
The first album that we did, Jacob and I wrote 4 or 6 of them, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them together, some of them separate. The second album was just a cover album. We had, and I think we may talk about it, but it was an album through Daywind Music. It was like so we had to use cover songs for that, but it was good because we needed some more material to be able to use, and so but we didn't write any of those. And then this last one that we did, Autumn wrote 2 of them, and then we didn't write any of them. And then the other ones were written by different writers. We had a lot of songs pitched to us that we sorted through, and
so these songs that we didn't write, there's still songs that nobody's ever heard before, and we've kind of been able to make them our own songs because these are songs that nobody's ever recorded and no one's ever really heard before. And so we have the opportunity to kind of, make them our own, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Jacob, walk us through, because Carmen mentioned something just a second ago that I had written down here in my notes, and I know you had briefly touched on this with me one time. We were talking, I remember after a service we had been involved in, you were kind of explaining a little bit about this, and I think this would be good for our audience to understand, but you guys had got kind of a bit of a break at one point in time, I guess, for lack of a better term. You had won a singing competition, I think, and it got a chance to get some resources to help you guys out. Talk to us about, what happened there and why that was such a big deal.
Yeah, well, we did that first record that was just self-titled Phillips and Banks, and we did it at a local studio, and good friends of ours helped us through that process. And then after that, we knew we needed more material to be able to, sing in services, but we also knew that, we didn't have the money to do that, and so we began to pray and seek the Lord on all those things, and God opened the door for us to be able to go down, and it was the Bowling Fest down in London, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And we went down in, I think it was May of 2018, and we just sang in this talent competition, and we went that night, and they announced our name that we had won, and we were all floored. We got to go up and sing on the main stage that night, and we got to go to Day One Recording Studios in Nashville and record a full-length project. And like Carmen had mentioned, it was all cover songs, and we chose songs. The title of that album is A Few of Our Favorites, and it's just songs that have ministered to us over the years that really almost everybody in this genre knows. They're all really well-known songs that people have done, but we just really felt that we needed to do those because they had meant so much to us. And so we got to do that project for free, and that's just how God works, So that's why it was such a big deal for us, because we got to, do that whole project for free, and and then be able to put back from the profit on that, to be able to put back towards a new full-length album was, it's just a huge thing that God did for us. So,
how many albums do you guys have right now?
4.
4 currently.
The third one is another only God thing. We were at a conference in Kentucky. I don't know what it is about Kentucky, but
I wish we could go to Kentucky all the time.
But we were at this conference in Kentucky, and we didn't know anybody. We were just there just to experience what the week was going to be like. It was just a gospel fest thing, and met a man from a studio who has a studio in Atlanta, and he had talked to a person who was there, somebody who he was friends with, and they'd asked him about us and said, "Do you know them?" He said, "Well, yeah, I met them yesterday." And she said, "Well, I want to bless them." And he said, "Well, okay, I'm sure they'll let you." So he said, she said, "No, you understand? I want to use you, and I want them to record an album with you, and I want to pay for it, and I don't want them to know who I am." And so he came over the next day and said, "You're not going to believe this." But he told us the story. We still don't know who that person is.
Wow.
But yeah, I still don't know who they are. But so we were able to do a Christmas album with that, with the guy. His name is Rob Novell in Atlanta. And that was completely free. I don't understand how, anyway, I don't know how that's happened, except that it was the Lord. But all of that got us to the place where we could, do this new project that we just came out with. And
it was not free.
Yeah, it was not free. But the Lord had provided, and I was telling somebody the other day, I said, what's crazy is yeah, that account for the album account may be empty right this moment, but everything is paid for. Like, he paid for every single bill that came for this CD. And so, I mean, in every regard, he's provided,
And this one was just so cool because we had never been a part of a recording process, I don't think, that was so detailed and so, like, just every piece and part of it was so professionally done. And we're just, we're proud of what God did through this record.
Sure.
And I know, because I believe, I know that God is going to use it to touch people's lives, because it's touched mine, and I know that he's going to use it. I just know he is.
And to see his hand through it all, that he's directed the steps of all this, So
Yeah.
that's the best part.
As far as the practical side of things, I'll throw this one over to Caleb and Autumn. How often do you guys travel? I know, obviously, in the last couple months, things have been, really crazy. But, on a normal schedule, like, how often are you guys on the road in a given week?
Our normal schedule, we've had so far, by the grace of God, we've had 2 full weeks and weekends. Like Carmen was saying, our church had opened back up and we were able to go to church, but it was it was crazy to see the cancellations that happened. But it's funny, even through that, the Lord even provided through some other ministries that we knew. We did something similar to this. They were videoing for their church, so we went and recorded, during the week. Not very minimal contact with anybody, but so to get to your question, though, the Lord is still, we travel almost every weekend. Sometimes during the week, especially during the summer when they have different events,
The revivals.
Sure.
Like that.
revivals. So it's the Lord has been very, not saying he's not good to everybody. I'm saying, but as far as our ministry, he's just allowed us to have a lot of places to be able to go. And so we travel, I guess, every week that I know of, at least. And even now, this weekend, like Jacob was saying, we had a cancellation Sunday night, but Sunday morning we still had a great service. And so we stay on the go, and I love it. It's just something that the Lord's put in all of our hearts to travel, and he's made a way to do that. So it's awesome,
Where's the furthest place you guys have traveled?
I guess it would be up to Washington, PA. So we've been up to Washington, Pennsylvania. I don't know. I guess that's further than Cincinnati, or maybe they're about the same distance from here. I don't know, but we've been to Cincinnati. We've been to up near Pittsburgh. Washington, Pennsylvania is about 45 minutes or so from Pittsburgh.
Over, I guess the farthest is Paris, Tennessee.
Went over. That's about 2 hours west of Nashville, Paris, Tennessee.
Yeah.
So
Most of the stuff we do, is near home, within a couple hours of home, but
Right.
He's brought us outside. We'll go anywhere he asks us to go. So, but that's about the far reaches of where we've been so far.
Now, something that I'm a stickler for, because I think sometimes, especially younger people that aspire to get into ministry, and God bless them, like, the Lord knows we need more of them. I think we come at it wide-eyed. I know as a minister, I did the same thing. You have googly eyes and you think, I can't wait to get out there, and I can't wait to be a servant, and I want to do all this stuff for the Lord, and that's great, and I'm all for enthusiasm and zeal, because the opposite of that is just terrible. But at the same time, I think you guys, on a very practical level, could talk to something about practice time that goes in. And yes, God has gifted you, and yes, you have a calling. But we have to work these things out, and we have to exercise these gifts, and we have to grow in these gifts. So my question to you really is, what does practice time look like for you guys, and how often do you all get to do that?
When we have new music to study, and things that we've never done, this album, just anything new, we get together, once a week or something like that, and until we get things down where we want it to be. But really after we've kind of put it into a good groove, we don't really get together that often. For me, more preparation as far as being prepared spiritually has been our goal. It's awesome if we'll go to a church and we don't miss a beat, and we don't ever miss anything, and we don't screw up something, sound horrible, hit a wrong note, whatever. That's great. But if we're not, I have seen, in the past and even in our ministry now, I've seen when we come in headstrong and we're not ready spiritually, when we've not spent the time with the Lord, when we've not prepped our heart, you can definitely tell that the Lord's like, you weren't ready.
Yeah.
And, and he doesn't move like we've seen him move, So for us, definitely when we're not ready musically, it can be bad. And so we do work on new things, but I guess now we're doing it so often that it's like more often than not we need prep spiritually than anything,
Yeah.
Taylor and I were talking about that last week, or as a group we were, that the Lord's just reminding us over and over that without prep, without spending that time with him, without being ready, we can't hear from him. We don't know what he wants us to talk about or speak to, or even what songs, he's going to lay on our heart to do. Or so anyway, that may not answer your question answer, but that's where we are.
Well, and I do want to speak to what you're saying, because I do hear what you're saying. Yeah. I don't want you to think we're copping out by saying, well, it's just all about how spiritually prepared we are. I know the question that you're asking, and it is important, because one thing that we all learned at the theater is that God deserves our best.
Sure.
And that Jesus deserves excellence, and that we shouldn't, give him our leftovers, but he deserves our first fruits. And so I understand the question that you're asking, and it is important to hone in on your craft and work on your craft, because God deserves our best. And we can't just expect to show up and, well, we just, we did our part. We showed up and set the sound system up. We've got to put the work in, before we get to that moment, so that we need to be, here's the thing, we need to be so musically prepared that we're not worried about the music through the service, but that if we're so prepared musically coming in already, then we can be sensitive to the Holy Spirit and actually minister to people. But if you're standing up there worried about the notes that you're singing and the words that you're singing, and worried about all that stuff the whole time, messing up or whatever, then you're never going to be able to effectively minister to the people that are out there. So that's why, to me, it's so important, to be prepared. And one of the biggest reasons why, and I'll be quiet in just a second. I'm really sorry.
That's all right.
I talk a lot. I'm sorry. One of the biggest reasons why that once you record an album and you've worked on all that music going into the recording, and then you work on it while you're recording it, when you come out of it, if you don't know the music, then you probably didn't make a good album. You know what I mean? Like, if you didn't, like, if you come out of it and you still need to practice every day of the week, and then you may not have made a good album.
Yeah.
So the prep work goes in before, for sure.
Caleb, I'll throw this one out to you. What advice, I guess, would you add on to what they just mentioned there for worship leaders and musicians and singers who are kind of cutting their teeth in this now?
Oh man. Well, just to be honest with you, the biggest thing that I've learned myself is balance. You have to have balance. And like Carmen was saying, that is something that I feel like has been one of my biggest stumbling blocks, is because, yes, I love going to ministry and God moves to the service, but then when you get into, because we still have to do things the Lord provides in different ways for us, and right now that's through, whether it's a side job we take on or something of that nature. You have to learn balance. And what I mean by that is, yes, it's good for you to work and you've got to provide for your home, but you've also got to be a part of your home, not just somebody that shows up and goes to sleep.
Right.
And even in that realm, you have to, no matter what it looks like, and I'm speaking from personal experience, no matter what it looks like financially, no matter what it looks like, what's coming up, what's going on around you, somewhere in that groove and somewhere in that balance, you have to maintain that God is first in everything. And that is because you get, as bad as it sounds, and this I speak to other people who are in ministry, and this may be part of your slump, but if you get into a routine, if it's just a routine to show up and sing, if it's just, you're going to sing, somebody's going to preach, you're not getting anywhere. And like Carmen was saying, that's what we've been talking a lot about. A lot of what our prep time goes into as well is, if you are a team, we have a group chat and we see each other quite often, and you've got to stay connected, but you've also, and it's not always pleasant, but you've got to share the good and you've got to share the bad. When I'm struggling, Jacob and Carmen and my wife, Autumn, they're the first ones to know. And I tell them. And it's not always comfortable having to tell them, hey, I've not spent a lot of time with the Lord this week, so maybe I shouldn't be the one speaking this Sunday. And, but even sometimes not as extreme as that. It could be, I lost my family member this week. I need your all's prayers. This is something I'm struggling, wondering, how we're going to make the bills this week. And you've got to be able to share with one another. You have to, especially, being a part of a team. If something's off, everybody's going to know, whether you want them to know or not. And so a balance, that's one of the biggest things and one of the hardest things it's been for me to learn is balance your life, balance your time with the Lord, especially, and make sure that without him being first, nothing else falls into place. And that's what creates the balance. But inside of that balance, learn to share your good and your bad with your team. Learn to share everything and be able to, if you can be that open with everybody in your group, imagine how much more open you can be with God and even sharing with him, Lord, this is what I'm struggling with so hard right now in this moment. And so being raw and open and having that balance, or that's the biggest piece of advice I could share with anybody in ministry.
Yeah, that's really well put. I'll tell you what, we're going to take a really quick break, and then we're going to come right back. I've got one final question I want to ask to everybody I think will be really good, and then I'd like to transition into how everybody can get in contact with you guys and be a part of your ministry, and so we'll come back with that in just a few seconds. Hey there, thanks for holding tight with us. We're back with the last part of our interview here with Phillips and Banks. It's been tremendous so far, but I do want to throw this question out there before we get into some of the conclusion and ways that people can get in touch with you guys and be a part of the ministry. I guess if there's one key takeaway, and I'd like to hear from everybody here, one major thing that the Lord has taught you in this ministry, and I'll start with Carmen and we'll go from there.
For me, I guess it's that, and continually being taught to be genuine and real in everything that we do. That this is different in what we used to do, I guess, because, being at the theater, it wasn't an act. I mean, it wasn't, it was a theater. It was an act, in the show or whatever. But still, you were either performing as a different character, or you were being something or someone or whatever. But this is you, connecting with people. And we had done that, on the road before, but not as it wasn't our gig. You know what I mean? It wasn't all on us.
We were backup singers.
We were the backup, to what was going on. And that was it was a safe place to be, and a great place to learn. But now, every time that we sing anywhere, I just, I pray, Lord, just help us to be transparent and let this be real. Teach us how to be real with people, because, that's where they see something that they can identify with. That's where they see that you're just the same. You're just on this side of a microphone, and that we need the Lord just as much as anybody else does. And so I guess through the whole thing, and seeing that when we are genuine and real, seeing the Lord really make some moves in people's hearts, because we allowed them to see in something of us that, connected to the Lord, or what we needed from the Lord, or wherever we were, So I guess continually learning that, but also just what being in this ministry has taught me, just trying to be as genuine and as open and as real as I can, no matter if I'm one-on-one with somebody, but also just from the stage or wherever. So,
Jacob, what about you?
I think the biggest thing that this ministry's taught me is how to wait on the Lord. I'm the type of person, I'm type A personality, and when I want to do something, my natural tendency is just to grab a hold of it and just to make it happen, and, push through and make it all happen. And, even like in my side jobs, or, and just taking life by the horns, I guess you should say, and just trying to do, constantly working or whatever. And God's really taught me through this ministry, I think, just sit back and watch me work and be patient and wait on me, to do the moving. And, don't try to make something happen in your flesh, but wait on me to do it. And, it's almost like when you do that, when you wait on him and when you're obedient and you wait on him, he does the exalting. And he's the one that moves you forward. And he's the one that, puts 2 completely free albums on the product table. And he's the one that gets all the dates booked. And it's just to watch him work, then I can give glory to God instead of glorying in myself. You know what I mean? So yeah. I think that's, for me, what I have learned is just to stand back and watch God move, be patient, and so.
Well, Banks family, how about you guys?
Well, as I was saying before, balance is definitely one. But another thing I've had to learn, kind of like Jacob was saying, and Carmen, it's so funny. I get in such a big way myself of trying to, especially when you're in ministry. And I know a lot of people don't like to talk about this, but finances, you have to pay your bills. And the crazy thing is, even through the pandemic, there are times when we weren't singing every weekend, no matter how it happens, God is faithful. And so that's something that he's taught me, not just financially, but even in times where I'm, and this is for anybody that's in ministry, when you don't think you know the words or you don't have the right thing to say, that's a good thing to think. It's not supposed to be you. So you do, you close your mouth and let God speak. And that's hard for me because I talk a lot. But I literally, there are days when I have to say, I mean, wrapped up in everything that's going on, I have to say, you are God and I'm Caleb. You are the creator, I'm the creation. And so something that God has really taught me through this ministry is his faithfulness, not just in finances, not just spiritually, but in everything. He is faithful, and he's never, ever going to let us down. He never has, and he never will. He is God, and his promises will stick true, not just to the end of my life, but even beyond that. And that's his word says that. So he's faithful. That's the biggest thing I think he's taught me through this.
Yeah. Is Autumn going to chime in? There you go.
I think for me, it's that when I start getting comfortable is when I know that I'm probably not. Let me rephrase that. It's not always going to be comfortable where the Lord takes you.
Yeah.
And I think learning to sit in your discomfort and let the Lord work through it. I mean, that's the scripture says that, God is strongest in our weakness. And I feel like that for me, I'm very uncomfortable in any situation that's not completely calm and quiet. And I grew up in a pretty quiet Southern Baptist church, you know. And so when we first started, I had a lot of trouble letting the Lord work through me and in me in places that I wasn't used to being or comfortable being. But I've learned that it's okay to be uncomfortable, and the Lord has worked more in my own life when I am uncomfortable than when I'm just sitting being comfortable where I'm at. So I think that's important, is to just let yourself be uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's good. Now, looking ahead a little bit for people out there, I know we've had a great conversation so far, and I know a lot of people that may not be familiar with Phillips and Banks are probably sitting there thinking, hey, I'd love to hear these guys, I'd love to be a part of their ministry, love to support them or be where they're at, maybe if they're in their area at that time. So, Jacob, real quick, tell everybody about your all's website and how they can get in touch with you guys as far as reaching out and finding your material.
Okay, so the website is just phillipsandbanks.com, and our website is really set up like an electronic press kit, and so it has like the schedule on it, has our bios on it, has all the dates on it. I mean, it is the hub for everything you would need to know. You can listen to music, our music on there, some samples of that on there. So if there's any folks that are out there, wondering who we are, all you have to do is just go to phillipsandbanks.com. We also, of course, we have a Facebook page and Instagram page. We put a lot of content out there on Facebook and Instagram too, and try to keep people updated that way. But if you're just wondering who we are and you want to know more about the ministry, phillipsandbanks.com is where you need to go.
And what about ministers out there? Like, I'm sure a lot of guys are listening, and I say that as if we have a big audience. That's very arrogant, but for those that are listening, the tens and tens that are probably here, how can these guys reach out to you all as far as like you have an email address or a number you want to put out there for them?
Yes, so the number is 423-956-2881. And the email address is phillipsandbanksmusic@gmail.com. So they can contact us either way, and they can find all that information on the website as well.
Gotcha.
It's on the website. So church, we would love to come and, provide a service that way. And so please, contact us. We would love to do that.
What about the next couple of weeks? Right now we're recording this. It's a Monday afternoon. I think it's the 20th of July. So what about you guys for the next 2 or 3 weeks? What do you have coming up?
So this coming Sunday morning on July 26th, barring COVID, whatever. But we're going to be at Living by Faith Church in Bluntville, Tennessee. Okay. Pastor's name is Jeff Harless there. And then that Sunday night, we're supposed to be at Old Union United Methodist Church in Church Hill that Sunday night. We're telling everybody right now, before they travel any kind of distance, to make sure they call or message us on Facebook to make sure that the, date is still. And then the next weekend, August 2nd, we're going to be with a good friend of ours, Donnie Humphreys at River of Life Church in Piney Flats for their homecoming. And then we're actually going to be at Crossway on August 16th. So we'll be with you guys there then. And,
yeah, there's a really good preacher that morning too. I think his name's Jeremiah, so he'll be there.
Okay.
Yeah, make sure we plug that guy real well.
With all of us, Jeremiah and Phillips and Banks, August 16th at Crossway. But we have a lot of local dates over the next few months. So just check the website and come out and see us.
Awesome. Well, we got a really special treat here. We're hoping to pin this in together. I know our IT guy, Cody, is going to be working on this as best he can. So we're going to close out this episode with one of Phillips and Banks' recordings. So if you'll hang tight there, we'll add this in there with you. So until next time, guys, we appreciate you so much. I had a tremendous time, and I want to say this on behalf of you all. I think you're excellent people. I think you're excellent servants of the Lord. I love your heart. I love what you're doing. I love how you go about what you're doing. I love the fact you're always growing and getting better at what you do. Every time I've been around you in service and stuff, it's as if long lost friends. I mean, it's a hug and a handshake, and it's a good conversation. It's never shallow. Your ministry's got depth to it. I think you're really reaching people for the right reasons. I love your testimonies, what you do for God. And so I can't recommend you guys enough. So if you're out there, if you're a pastor, a leader in a church somewhere, and you're looking for good, fundamental, biblically sound, God-honoring people, look no further than Phillips and Banks. I can't say enough about them. You'll be blessed by it. You'll grow in your walk with the Lord, no doubt. So that's my ringing endorsement for them, and I'll stand by that any day of the week. We've had an opportunity to be in ministry before.
I will say this too really quick before we go. I remember shortly after I met you was at a place called Nicholsville's Days, and they were doing a service there, and you preached there that morning. And I remember really enjoying that message. And there was a friend of ours. You remember me talking about Janice Owens, the lady that passed away and went and sang at her funeral? Her husband was with us that morning, and he loved your message. And after that, he got online and found you and started reading all your content on Facebook. And then he was talking about this very podcast that you're doing and how he was listening to those and getting fed through those. And so if you ever wonder if you're reaching anybody, you are, brother. You're reaching people.
Well, I appreciate that.
You need to know that your teaching is solid, it's good, it's biblical, and people are listening. So it's a good thing.
Well, we appreciate that. So, guys, until next time, we'll leave it at that right now, but hang tight for that next song. And until we see you again, have a great week in Jesus.
Caught in a web of uncertainty, wondering what tomorrow will bring, clinging to the promise He will meet your every need. Lay aside your questions, stand still and you will see God will be faithful again when all hope is gone and there's no way to win. You're not defeated when you've reached the end. God will be faithful again and again. God will be faithful again. from every